Hey, welcome back to our questions videos. In the last video I made, we talked about who Jesus is, and I argued that he is fully human and truly God, and that we discover in him what it means to be human and who God is when we look to the person of the Lord Jesus Christ. And some of you who may not be followers of Jesus might wonder, well, why should I believe what you're telling me? You quoted from the Bible in there, Robert. Why should I believe that? I'm not currently a believer. And there are lots of answers we could give to that question. And it is a really, really important question. And so I don't want to dismiss it or write it off with references to the Bible, which you may or may not believe. Ultimately, the greatest piece of evidence to my mind, and I think to the mind of most people who have been followers of Jesus in history, is the evidence that we have that Jesus died, which wouldn't be miraculous, but then he rose again. And how do we know that happened? Well, there's all sorts of testimony that he said in his ministry, in his life among his disciples, that he was going to die, and that after he died, he would raise from the dead and be exalted as Lord. And there's all sorts of responses to this in his ministry that we can read about in the Gospels. But most of them were very confused by this and didn't believe that was what was supposed to happen. And when Jesus died, his disciples essentially abandoned their belief that he was the Messiah, the promised king, the Lord, as he had proclaimed that he was, until they experienced him risen from the dead afterwards. And this happened over a long period of time, a number of days, and in a number of different instances. And so people who were close to him, his family members, people who knew him, people who wouldn't be confused about who they were encountering, realized that after he had been dead and buried, he was alive again. And people who were fishermen became apostles and church planters and pastors. Their lives were changed. But not only that, there were people who were formerly enemies of Jesus in the early Christian movement, such as the Apostle Paul, who was on his way to Damascus to enchain Christians and to bring them before the religious court to suffer consequences for following this teaching. He was struck blind by an experience of Jesus Christ, and he turned his life around to become one of the most fiercely loyal followers of Jesus, who preached the gospel to all the known world in his day. So ultimately, I believe in the resurrection because of the martyr testimony of the first witnesses. They were in a position to know who they experienced in their resurrection experiences, and they believed it so strongly that they were willing to give their lives to suffer death to proclaim the truth of it because they thought it was so important. See, people lie for all sorts of reasons, but they're always for personal gain. The people who first witnessed the resurrection gained nothing but persecution, and many of them gained death, martyrdom. You don't die for what you know is a lie. You don't die for what you believe is naive and foolish to believe. You die for something that you believe, and they had every reason to know whether this was Jesus they experienced or not. And so their sincere faith, their willingness to give their lives for the truth that Jesus had rose from the dead and been exalted as Lord over all, is why I also believe in the resurrection, and I think you should believe in the resurrection as well. Blessings.